there is a world that's very powerful, an invisible world, if you will, that we can't see, we can't touch, we can't explain scientifically. Even in 2010, there are people around the world who believe that demonic possession is something that's very real. In Italy alone, 500,000 exorcisms are performed every year, 500,000. So that's just in Italy alone. There's a living and breathing battle between good and evil.
In the summer of '75, George and Kathy Lutz went to view the house at 112 Ocean Avenue. DeFeo had gone off to prison, had already been convicted. They were not aware that this house was the DeFeo house before arriving, until the realtor had told them. Talked it over with children, none of which had a problem with it, and decided to move into the house, and claimed that right from the beginning, terrifying and supernatural events began to take place.
The story of the Amityville tragedy and the Lutz's haunting afterwards is something that permeates, the collective psyche of not just Long Islanders, but probably all people in the United States, if not the world. It is in some ways the most well-known ghost story in modern times.
The Lutzes talked about disembodied voices, personality changes, movement of objects by themselves. Kathy talked about having nightmares of where she was able to determine in what order the DeFeo killings were committed and where the bullets went in and out of the body when this information had never been released. The more dysfunction, the more anger that was going on in the house, the worse it got. It's interesting the parallels between the two stories because not only did George Lutz look very similar to Ronnie DeFeo, but the anger, the relationships between the families changed upon moving in the house. Became pitted against each other. Arguments ensued. They were angry with the kids. The kids were fighting. The Lutzes, upon buying the house, purchased contents, furniture, and such from the DeFeo estate. A lot has been said on whether or not supernatural forces or supernatural, connotations have been connected to the fact that that furniture was used. Melissa's bed was Dawn DeFeo's bed frame. This is pretty disturbing.
Objects can retain energy, whether it's positive or negative. And I don't find it hard to imagine that an object, for instance, the furniture that was left behind, couldn't have some kind of energy associated with it that would, manipulate and change the Lutz's personality.
The final night the Lutzes were in the house was a topic that George and Kathy did not talk about at any length, hardly at all in any interviews when they were alive. After the Lutzes fled the house, they left everything, that they had there. They just took a couple changes of clothes and they went to Kathy's mother's home to ditch the house, give it back to the bank, and immediately fled to the other end of the country to San Diego. March 6, 1976, numerous psychics and paranormal investigators came together, numerous seances conducted. On the second floor, there was a camera on a tripod that was on the timer, and it had taken a snapshot of what appears to be a young boy peering out of the doorway. There were no children in the house the night of the March 6th investigation. In 1977, Ethel Johnson Myers and Hans Holzer, world-renowned parapsychologists, went inside the house where Ethel Johnson Myers went into trance and began speaking with what she said was a Native American buried on that property. Laura DiDio, a 19-year-old news assistant, actually found documentation within the Amityville Historical Society that showed that there were Indians buried on that property. The Napa-Pequot tribe were buried on that property. Now, that information has suddenly gone missing within the Historical Society, which is interesting. Because the Amityville lives, George and Kathy stuck to their story and never wavered in the fact that this did happen to them.
The entire family is decimated and wiped out. Isn't it possible that there's a spiritual, a psychological, a physical radiation that's left after tragedy?
Since the Lutzes left the house, no one has come forward to report any paranormal phenomena. The subsequent owners have done things to hide it, change the windows, change the address, change the look of the house. No matter what they do, they can't, get rid of the caravans of people that show up with cameras and to get a look at America's most famous haunted house.
There was nothing but bad in that house. I was going to burn it to the ground. That's the truth. I was going to burn it to the ground. I just pray to God it don't happen to nobody else. That's what I told you. Anybody buys that house and got kids and moving there, come on, man. You really gotta be something wrong.
I have to get there. I have to face them. Or it's not going to leave me alone. Having a psychic connection with Ron brought me to the place where I'm at now. As I walk through the house and relive November 13th, 1974, I become both the victims and the perpetrator. That's where the trouble started. I feel panic. Authority. Rage. I hear it. I heard him screaming. He stopped. He shouldn't have woken up. I heard Ronnie crying. All the blood. And in the background of all of that, I heard a deep, dark voice laughing, mocking. I heard a lot of running, chasing. I heard him fighting with John. What did you do? Exactly what happened the night of the murder at 112 Ocean Avenue. The truth is the truth, and everything I saw was true.
And the only way to put it to an end, somebody's got to go to that graveyard and send them both back to hell.
The source of this evil wasn't just any demon, it was the demon.